Okay, so imagine this. You live somewhere so cold, so isolated, so far from anything, that the only thing keeping you company on a Tuesday night is a bottle of vodka and maybe a horse.
Okay, that's either a really sad Tuesday or a really interesting one.
Now imagine that's not just one person. That's basically the whole country. And I'm not being dramatic. There are places in the world where the alcoholism rate is so high it's not even funny anymore. Like statistically, nearly 1 in 20 people is struggling with it.
Wait, 1 in 20? That's like if you're in a classroom of 40 kids, 2 of them are already cooked before they even graduate.
Yep. And on the complete opposite end, there are countries where alcohol is basically non-existent, where the culture, the religion, the whole social fabric just doesn't do it, like at all.
So we've got one side of the world going absolutely feral with the drinks, and the other side just sipping water and thriving?
Basically. And the reasons why? Way more interesting than you'd think.
Okay, yeah, no, I need to hear this.
Hey there, and welcome back to Solo Filler.
I'm Lily, also known as the one who's going to be having a crisis every 5 minutes during this episode.
And I'm John, the one who's going to be calmly explaining why that crisis is completely justified. Solo Filler is the show where we break down a bunch of topics, deep dives, explainers, current events, all of it, and lay it out like two friends just rambling while you go about your day.
Yeah, think of us as that one friend who did all the reading so you don't have to. You're welcome, by the way.
In today's episode, we're talking about global alcoholism rates. Specifically, which countries have the highest rates, which ones have the lowest, and most importantly, why. Because it's not just about people liking to drink. There's history, culture, economics, politics, all of it wrapped up in a bottle.
Which honestly sounds like the plot of a really depressing video game side quest, but go on.
But before we get into it, if you're enjoying the show, please leave a like and share this with a friend. Doesn't matter if they're a history nerd, a trivia junkie, or just someone who needs background noise while they fold laundry.
Our boss really needs us to say that, like sincerely. The algorithm is not kind and we are not above begging.
We appreciate every single one of you. All right, enough of the intro yapping.
Let's get into it.
All right, so let's start at the top. And when I say the top, I mean the absolute peak, the #1 spot for highest alcoholism rates in the entire world.
Okay, I'm already nervous. Who is it?
Mongolia.
Mongolia?
Mongolia.
As in Genghis Khan, horses, the giant empty steppe, that Mongolia?
That exact Mongolia. Coming in at 4,818 cases per 100,000 people.
Holy crap. Okay, so why? What is going on over there?
So picture this. Mongolia is massive, right? Like it's one of the most sparsely populated countries on the planet. Huge land, not a lot of people, brutal winters, and a lot of isolation.
So it's basically like being stuck in a loading screen with no fast travel and the weather is trying to kill you.
Pretty much. And when you're dealing with that level of isolation and cold, historically people turn to two things: vodka and a drink called arog, which is fermented mare's milk.
I'm sorry, fermented mare's milk? As in they took horse milk and made it alcoholic?
Yes, it's a traditional drink, been around for centuries, consumed at festivals like Naadam, which is basically Mongolia's biggest national celebration.
So their version of cracking open a cold one at a barbecue is horse milk wine? Okay, I respect the commitment, honestly.
But here's where it gets more serious. When the Soviet era hit, they flooded the Mongolian market with cheap spirits, like mass-produced, dirt-cheap vodka everywhere.
There's that bad feeling again.
And then, in the 1990s, the Soviet Union collapses, the economy tanks hard, and binge drinking literally doubled, according to global burden of disease data.
So the economy fell apart and people just drank through it?
Yep. When life gives you an economic collapse and you live in one of the coldest, most isolated places on Earth, apparently you drink.
I mean, I'm not gonna say I don't understand the logic. That's rough.
Now, speaking of the Soviet legacy, let's slide right into number 2 on the list, Belarus.
Okay, Belarus I actually know a little about. Isn't that the one that's super tight with Russia still?
Exactly right. Post-Soviet state, heavy industry, agriculture, very much still in Russia's orbit. Coming in at 4,494 per 100,000 people.
So just slightly behind Mongolia. What's their deal?
So in Belarus, vodka isn't just a drink, it's basically a social language. Like offering someone vodka is a sign of hospitality. You come to my house, I pour you a drink. That's just how it works.
Okay, I mean, that's kind of wholesome in a chaotic way. But also, I can see how that spirals fast.
Right, because when drinking is baked into your daily social rituals, it stops being occasional and starts being just constant. Belarusian men, on average, consume over 15 liters of pure alcohol per year.
15 liters. John, 15! That's like chugging an entire 2-liter soda bottle of pure alcohol every single month and a half. That's insane.
It gets worse. The government under Lukashenko, Belarus's longtime president, actually prioritized alcohol tax revenue over public health policies. So there was no real push to slow it down.
So the government was basically like, yeah, keep drinking. It's good for the budget.
And then on top of that, during the 1990s hyperinflation crisis, when store-bought alcohol got too expensive, people started making samogon.
What now?
Samogon. Homemade moonshine, basically. People were brewing their own alcohol at home because it was cheaper than buying it.
So it's like if the store is too expensive, just craft it yourself. Full survival mode, Minecraft economy, but make it vodka.
Exactly. And once that became normalized, it just locked in the high rates. It's been a cycle ever since.
That's genuinely kind of heartbreaking when you think about it. Like, it started as culture and tradition, and then economics just pushed it into overdrive.
Yeah, and that's kind of the theme you're going to keep seeing as we go through this list.
Oh, great. So it gets deeper. Cool. Let's keep going then.
All right, moving right along. And honestly, I feel like the next one on the list is going to surprise absolutely nobody.
If you say Russia, I swear to God.
Russia.
I knew it. I called it. I called it from the jump. Of course, Russia is on this list. Of course.
Coming in at number 3, 4,379 per 100,000 people.
Okay, but we all kind of knew Russia was going to be on here, right? This isn't shocking. Russia and vodka is like Mario and jumping. It's just part of the character.
I mean, you're not wrong, but the reasons behind it are actually really interesting. So, Russia is the biggest country in the world by landmass. We're talking Moscow all the way out to remote Siberia. And there's this thing in Russian culture called pomel culture.
What?
Pomel. Essentially, it's this deeply ingrained social norm where drinking spirits, specifically vodka, is just how you cope. Long, brutal winters, stress, isolation in remote areas, vodka is the answer to all of it.
So it's like a national coping mechanism. Russia said therapy is expensive, but vodka is cheap.
Pretty much. And it got so bad at certain points that people weren't even drinking actual vodka. They were drinking surrogates. Things like aftershave, cologne, cleaning products with alcohol content.
I'm sorry, what? They were drinking aftershave?
During economic crises, yeah. When proper alcohol became unaffordable or scarce, people found alternatives.
That is the most desperate, most unhinged, and somehow most human thing I've ever heard. Bro said, I don't care what the label says, if it's got ethanol, we're going.
Now, here's an interesting twist, though. Back in 1985, Gorbachev actually launched a massive anti-alcohol campaign. Restricted sales, limited production, the whole thing.
Oh wait, so someone actually tried to fix it?
Tried, being the keyword. It worked, briefly. Alcoholism rates did drop during that period.
Okay, so it was working. Let me guess, then something went wrong.
The Soviet Union collapsed in the 1990s. Economy goes into chaos, the campaign falls apart, and everything just reversed. Hard.
So they were this close. They had the solution in their hands, and then the whole country just imploded and took the progress with it?
Basically. And Russia's been in the top tier of these rankings ever since.
Humans, man. We really do be sabotaging ourselves at every opportunity. Okay, who's next?
Next up, still in that post-Soviet neighborhood, Kazakhstan, coming in at 4,100 per 100,000 people.
Kazakhstan. Okay, I know Kazakhstan. That's the big steppe country, right? Oil rich, used to be Soviet. Borat made everyone think it was a joke, but it's actually a real and very serious country.
That's the one. So Kazakhstan is interesting because it's got this blend of two very different cultural influences. Turkic nomadic traditions on one side and heavy Russian Soviet influence on the other.
So it's like a cultural crossover episode.
Kind of, yeah. And both sides of that crossover brought drinking with them. On the traditional Kazakh side, there's this drink called kumis, which is fermented mare's milk, similar to Mongolia's arog, actually.
Wait, fermented mare's milk again? Is this a steppe thing? Do the horses know they're basically a brewery at this point?
It's absolutely a steppe thing. And kumis on its own is pretty low alcohol, traditional, ceremonial. But over time, those traditions evolved into straight-up vodka-heavy toasts at big communal feasts called beshbarmak.
So the ceremonial drink slowly got upgraded to the hard stuff. That's like starting a gaming session with a casual mobile game and somehow ending up in a 12-hour Dark Souls run at 3 a.m.
That's actually a perfect analogy. And then when Kazakhstan gained independence in the 90s, suddenly there was this flood of duty-free alcohol coming in from neighboring countries. Cheap, accessible, everywhere.
Oh no, independence plus cheap booze flooding in? That's a recipe.
And as more people moved from rural areas into cities, urbanization, combined with growing inequality, youth drinking rates just spiked. Younger generations getting initiated into heavy drinking earlier and earlier.
So it's not just old dudes at feasts anymore. It's spread across age groups.
Exactly. The culture, the history, the economics, all three things stacked on top of each other.
It really is like a debuff that just keeps stacking. You've got the cultural debuff, the Soviet legacy debuff, the economic instability debuff, and now you're running at like negative stats, wondering why everything feels terrible.
That is genuinely one of the most accurate ways I've ever heard it described.
I have my moments. Okay, so we've done Mongolia, Belarus, Russia, Kazakhstan. Are there more on the high end?
One more, and this one might actually surprise you.
Ooh, okay, hit me.
Greenland.
Greenland. The ice island? That Greenland?
3,996 per 100,000 people.
Okay, I did not have Greenland on my bingo card for this episode. Explain.
So Greenland is this Arctic island, about 56,000 people, mostly Inuit, under Danish rule. And isolation is the big keyword here again. We're talking settlements so remote that imported beer and spirits basically dominate what people consume because there isn't much else.
So it's like Mongolia's situation, but make it ice and Danish.
Pretty much. And it goes deeper. Danish colonial rule over the centuries actually eroded a lot of the traditional Inuit sobriety norms. Like the cultural guardrails that existed got worn down through assimilation policies.
So the colonizers showed up, messed with the culture, and the knock-on effect was this.
And then, in the 20th century, rapid urbanization hit Greenland, people moving from small settlements into towns, and that transition brought a spike in alcohol dependency that got tangled up with some really serious mental health crises. Suicide rates, depression, all interconnected.
That's actually really sad. Like, it's not just, oh, people like to drink there. There's genuine trauma and loss of cultural identity underneath it all.
Yeah, and that's true for a lot of these countries when you dig past the surface level. It's never just one thing.
Okay, I need a moment. That was heavy, like genuinely heavy.
Take your moment, because we're about to flip to the complete other side of the spectrum.
Oh, right, the countries with basically zero alcoholism. Okay, yeah, let's go. I need something different after all that.
All right, so we've spent a good chunk of time on the heavy end of this list, no pun intended. So now let's flip it completely and talk about the countries with the lowest alcoholism rates in the world.
Okay, yes, please. My brain needs a palate cleanser after all that.
So the number one lowest rate on the entire list goes to Niger, coming in at just 303 per 100,000 people.
Wait, 303? We just came from 4,800 and now we're at 303? That's not even in the same universe of numbers.
It's a massive drop, right? Like we went from nearly 1 in 20 people to basically a rounding error on the scale.
That's wild. Okay, so what's going on in Niger? Because clearly something very different is happening over there.
So Niger is a Sahel nation. That's the dry belt region just south of the Sahara Desert in West Africa. They've got uranium mines, nomadic Fulani herders, and the population is 99% Muslim.
Ah, okay, so religion is the big factor here.
Massive factor. In Islam, alcohol is considered haram, forbidden. So the Quran's prohibition on alcohol isn't just a personal choice, it's basically baked into the entire social and legal structure of the country.
So it's not like, yeah, drinking is frowned upon. It's more like we as a society have collectively decided this is not a thing we do.
Exactly. Production, sale, consumption, all of it is either banned outright or heavily restricted. There are small rural pockets where something like palm wine exists, but even that is largely shunned.
So even the loophole drink is side-eyed. Got it.
And here's the historical angle. When the French colonized Niger, there was a brief period of more tolerance toward alcohol. But after independence, Sharia law zones came in and basically reinforced that near-zero baseline hard.
So independence actually made it more restricted, not less. That's kind of the opposite of what happened in Kazakhstan.
Right? Same era, completely opposite outcome. And that contrast is kind of the whole point of this episode.
Okay, that's actually a really clean parallel. All right, who's next?
Right behind Niger is Mali at 327 per 100,000 people. Also in West Africa, also overwhelmingly Sunni Muslim.
Okay, so similar deal to Niger?
Similar foundation, but Mali has its own flavor. Mali is known for the Dogon Cliffs, which are these incredible ancient cliff dwellings, and it's also been dealing with some serious jihadist insurgency challenges in recent years.
Oh yeah, I've seen stuff about Mali in the news. It's been rough over there.
It has. But on the alcohol front, Mali has these really strong Sufi brotherhoods, which are basically organized Islamic spiritual communities, and they reinforce teetotaling really actively. Like it's not just the law, it's the community itself holding the line.
So it's peer pressure, but in the most wholesome direction possible. Your whole crew is sober, so you're sober.
Pretty much. Now, there is technically a fringe tradition of millet beer that exists, kind of a holdover from pre-Islamic animist traditions, but it's considered illicit and very much on the margins.
So there's a tiny underground millet beer scene happening somewhere in Mali, and everyone's just collectively pretending it doesn't exist.
Basically. And Mali actually converted to Islam way back around the 10th century, so this isn't a recent thing. It's been the norm for over 1,000 years.
1,000 years of sobriety, that's insane. My guy out here with a 1,000-year clean streak. Respect, honestly.
And even the Tuareg, the nomadic desert warriors of the region, historically avoided alcohol specifically to maintain what they called warrior purity. Like staying sharp was a point of pride.
Oh, so it's like those athletes who don't drink during the season because they want to stay in peak condition, except the season is just their entire life, and the stakes are desert warfare.
That is exactly what it is.
Ha, damn. Okay, I respect that a lot, actually. Who's next?
Next up, Yemen, at 330 per 100,000 people.
Oh, Yemen. Yeah, that's the one that's been in a really brutal civil war for years now, right?
Unfortunately, yes. Yemen is a war-torn country on the Arabian Peninsula, and it's been going through one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world for a while now.
So, on top of everything else they're dealing with, alcoholism somehow isn't even one of the problems.
Right. And part of that is religion. Yemen has both Zaydi Shia and Shafi'i Sunni communities, and both prohibit alcohol production and consumption.
So both sides of the religious divide agree on at least one thing.
One thing. But there's also this really interesting cultural factor. Yemen has a long tradition of chewing khat.
Wait, what's khat?
It's a plant, a stimulant. People chew the leaves and it gives a mild euphoric effect, kind of like a very light stimulant buzz. It's been part of Yemeni culture for centuries.
So instead of drinking to unwind, they just chew a plant?
Essentially, khat filled the social role that alcohol plays in other cultures. Sitting around chewing khat together is a whole social ritual over there.
That is genuinely fascinating. Like, every culture needs something to socialize around, and Yemen just picked the leaf over the bottle.
And even during the Ottoman period, when there was some distillation happening in the region, once the imamate, the religious rulers, took over, that basically vanished completely. And it stayed that way even through the Civil War.
So even with everything falling apart around them, that particular norm has held. That's kind of remarkable, actually.
It really is. Okay, let's keep moving. Rounding out the lowest rates, we've got two more. Chad and Palestine, both sitting at 332 per 100,000 people.
Tied for last place on the drinking charts. Okay, so Chad first. Tell me about Chad.
So Chad is this really diverse nation in Central Africa. It's got Lake Chad on one side, a Muslim north, and more Christian south. and the northern part of the country is very strictly governed by Islamic fatwas when it comes to alcohol.
Fatwas meaning like religious rulings banning it?
Exactly. The northern Kuruni and Bornu communities enforce those rulings pretty firmly. Now, in the south, there is a traditional drink called bilbil, a kind of sorghum beer, so it's not completely zero like Niger.
So Chad's got a little regional variation going on. North is dry, south has a little something something.
Right. And historically, the French colonial divide and rule policies actually helped preserve the Islamic dry zones in the north. Then oil was discovered in Chad in the 2000s, but even that economic shift hasn't really changed the drinking norms much.
Huh, so money didn't change the culture. That's actually kind of rare, because usually when oil money shows up, everything changes.
Chad's a good example of culture being stickier than economics. And then finally, Palestine.
Yeah, Palestine's situation is kind of its own whole thing, isn't it?
It really is. So the Palestinian territories, dealing with ongoing conflict, Gaza under Hamas governance, and alcohol is very much viewed as a Western import, almost like a symbol of outside cultural influence that the community actively rejects.
So it's not just religious, it's also like a statement of identity. We don't do that because that's not who we are.
Exactly. Family honor and community cohesion are huge values, and sobriety ties into that. There's this mentality of resilience, like we have bigger things to worry about and we're not going to escape into a bottle.
That's actually really powerful when you think about it that way. Like choosing to stay sharp and present even when everything around you is chaos.
And it goes back to the Ottoman-era bans that evolved over centuries into just being part of the cultural DNA at this point.
Wow, okay, so that's the full low end of the list. And honestly, I was not expecting to feel this many things during a podcast about drinking statistics.
That's kind of what happens when you pull on the thread. It goes way deeper than just numbers on a chart.
For real. Okay, so we've done the highs, we've done the lows. What's the big takeaway from all of this?
That's exactly where we're headed next. All right, so we've gone through the whole list, the highest, the lowest, the history behind all of it. And I think the big takeaway here is that alcoholism is never really just about alcohol.
Yeah, like going into this, I kind of assumed it was just gonna be some people drink more, some people drink less, moving on. But it's so much more layered than that.
Right, because when you look at every single country on that high end, Mongolia, Belarus, Russia, Kazakhstan, Greenland, what do they all have in common?
Cold, isolation, and some form of economic collapse or instability at some point.
Exactly. And on top of that, a history of cheap alcohol being deliberately flooded into their markets, mostly through Soviet-era policies that just normalized heavy drinking across entire generations.
So it wasn't even organic. Like, someone up the chain made decisions that basically set these countries up for this outcome decades later.
And the people at the bottom of that are the ones dealing with the consequences today. It's a cycle that's really hard to break once it's locked in.
That's genuinely one of the most depressing policy failures I've heard in a while. Like the butterfly effect, but the butterfly is a Soviet vodka factory.
And then flip it to the low end. Niger, Mali, Yemen, Chad, Palestine, and the common thread there is religion as a social anchor. Islam's prohibition on alcohol isn't just a personal rule, it's a community-wide norm that gets reinforced by family, by law, by tradition, by centuries of cultural identity.
So on one side, you've got isolation and economic chaos pushing people toward alcohol, and on the other side, you've got a really strong collective value system pulling people away from it.
It really comes down to three things across the board: religion and culture, history, and economics. Those three factors basically determine where a country lands on this spectrum.
Which honestly makes sense when you think about it. Like, those three things shape pretty much everything about how a society functions. Why would drinking be any different?
Exactly. And it's worth saying, this isn't about judging any of these countries. Every single one of these situations has real human beings behind the numbers dealing with real circumstances that most of us will never fully understand.
Yeah, like Mongolia's nomad cracking open a bottle in minus 40-degree weather isn't doing it because he's reckless. He's doing it because that's what his entire environment and history has handed him.
And the Yemeni guy sitting with his friends chewing khat in the middle of a war zone isn't doing it because he's somehow morally superior. He's doing it because that's what his culture handed him.
Context is everything. That's the lesson, honestly.
Context is everything.
Okay, so let's do a quick run-through of everything we covered today, starting at the top.
Mongolia, #1 highest in the world at 4,818 per 100K. Isolation, brutal winters, Soviet-era cheap vodka, and yes, fermented horse milk is a thing, and I'm still thinking about it.
Belarus at number 2, 4,494 per 100K. Vodka as social hospitality, a government that profited off it, and homemade moonshine becoming a survival skill.
Russia at #3, 4,379 per 100K. Pohimao culture, drinking aftershave in a crisis. Gorbachev almost fixed it, and then the Soviet Union said nah and collapsed.
Kazakhstan at number 4, 4,100 per 100K. Nomadic tradition meets Soviet influence, ceremonial drinks upgraded to vodka, and cheap booze flooding in after independence.
And Greenland rounding out the high end at 3,996 per 100K. Isolation, colonial erosion of traditional culture, and a really serious mental health crisis tangled up in all of it.
Then, flipping to the low end, Niger at 303 per 100K, Mali at 327, Yemen at 330, and Chad and Palestine both at 332. All of them held together by deep religious and cultural frameworks that have been reinforced for centuries.
And the big picture, it's never just about the drinking. It's about history, economics, culture, isolation, policy decisions made decades ago. All of it feeds into where a country ends up on this spectrum.
Perfectly summarized.
I have my moments.
And that is going to wrap up today's episode of Solo Filler. Honestly, this one went places I wasn't even expecting when we started.
Same, like I came in thinking this was going to be a fun little stats episode, and I left with genuine feelings about Soviet economic policy and Greenlandic colonial history. Thanks for that, John.
Anytime. Now, before we let you go, if you made it all the way to the end of this episode, first of all, thank you. Genuinely, that means a lot.
It really does. And if you enjoyed it, please leave a like, drop a comment, share it with a friend. Honestly, even if you hated it, share it with someone you want to argue about it with. Either way, the algorithm eats good.
And if there's a topic you want us to cover, history, culture, current events, a deep dive on something you've always been curious about, drop it in the comments. We read them.
We genuinely do. Our boss makes us. And subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss the next one. We drop new episodes regularly, and we promise they're at least this interesting.
Some of them are even more unhinged than this one, so you're gonna want to stick around for that.
On that note, thank you so much for tuning in to Solo Filler. We hope you learned something, we hope you laughed a little, and most importantly,
We hope you drink responsibly. Or, just choose some khat. Yemen had a point. With that, we both thank you for watching and hope you have an awesome day.
take care, everyone. See you in the next one.